I wanted to create a place where women can come to be empowered by other women. Women helping women, with interviews of extraordinary and inspiring leaders, artists, celebrities, and changemakers who have overcome great challenges to become incredibly successful and then give back to others so that they can love and believe in themselves, follow their bliss, and shine their light. In this way, we can truly be the change we wish to see in the world. Welcome to the Orgena Rose Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Orgena Rose Show. I am so excited again about my guest, Andrea Carter, founder and CEO of Wealthy Women Warrior, and here to talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Now, sex, drugs, and rock and roll isn't really what it sounds like. It is. It is. But really, the piece about that is that sex, drugs, and rock and roll, are really where addiction begins. And the underlying aspect of that is that we're all searching to be loved, and we're all searching to be able to connect, and we're all searching to be able to lead our lives to what we know is possible. And what's interesting about that in the work that I've done is where I continue to see the problem is that the story that you're telling yourself is as detrimental to your health, to your mindset, and to your reality or environment as doing something like drugs or being addicted to food or having something to cover or armor what it is that's really underneath everything. So the problem isn't necessarily the specific addiction. And please understand that I'm not minimizing addiction in any way here. But what I've noticed with the work that I've done is that there's always a story. There's always that underlying story that comes up. And, as I talked about with the Never Give Up motto, we have the choice to continue saying that story. We have the ability to either tune into it and continue playing it out in our mind, or we can write a new story.
Love that.
And when I was a child, going back to that aspect and loving love, right? Loving love and knowing that even though I had these experiences, the experience of it didn't have to be the shame that I stayed in. And looking at a different way to change that. So with my clients, a lot of the women that I work with, they come to me with stories of what has happened to them. And anybody can be the leader of their own life. Anybody can be the leader of massive companies. I work with women who are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I work with entrepreneurs. I work with women who are just struggling. And a lot of the time they come in and they have the story. One of the women that I've recently just helped, she came in and she said, Andrea, the problem is that I pushed through it all. I did it all. I had the 2 kids, I have the dog, I went through school, I did the checklist, I did it all, and I'm miserable.
What now?
What now? And we can have that extreme, where we can have the other extreme where it's I have nothing,
right,
and I haven't been able to achieve it, and I know that there's part of me that's bigger, that can do more, that is capable of incredible things. And it doesn't matter what extreme you're on. It's really what's happening in here and what's happening in your mind.
Yeah.
So that addiction, it's not about the addiction, it's about the story just as much as it is about how you're holding on to and what you're creating and the patterns and the behaviors that are derived from the addiction to our story. And in some ways, we love our story. We
Right?
do.
I love what you say. You have a great saying around that about our story and addiction.
Well, and it's funny because, you know, we really can hold on to the story, and the story becomes the reality. So what's the reality that you want to choose? What's the story you want to choose? And that's where the transformation starts to happen. So with the Wealthy Woman Warrior, what I did was I created 8 specific archetypes, and their patterns, their behavioral tendencies, their strengths, their challenges. And what we do is we look at it from the outside perspective of, okay, so this is the assessment that you've taken. This is what's come up. How does this relate in your life? And I can't get over how accurate, you know, when I created them, they were so, it shocks me still to this day about how accurate they are when women take them. And with each archetype, there's a different way to unplug from that story and start looking at the gifts and start looking at where you do have strengths, so that it's coming from a feminine or a woman's perspective, and the story can then change. You get to create your story. So if you're going to create your story, you might as well create it.
Create a nice one, a good one.
The way that you want it.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And because it is so much about leaving the old story, because as you say, right, we can be addicted to our story, right? The story is the addiction is the story. Like, that's so powerful because we don't realize we're addicted to our story. I love that. And now it's about creating what we really, really want, creating the story that we want.
That's right.
And then really going for that. So we're going to come right back and find out how to do that, because Andrea is phenomenal at really guiding women into really creating that new story. So we'll be right back.
Are you ready to completely catapult your life and business fast? Want to step into the spotlight and finally be seen as the expert and star that you are? Ready to have more fun in your business and work smarter, not harder? Then you're in the right place. Step into the spotlight, shine your light, and be the star you are in the Celebrity VIP Day. If you're done being the best kept secret, want to reach more people, and ready to stop working so hard with little payoff, step up into your celebrity. In this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, you'll get the star treatment. Have a TV talk show interview guaranteed. Be ready to rock the media and interview on national TV, radio, and magazines, and so much more. Your fabulous fun-filled day includes hair and makeup by a top Hollywood makeup artist to the stars, professional photos by a top Hollywood photographer, exclusive VIP lunch at a luxurious castle, a guaranteed interview with Orgena Rose, walk the red carpet, and enjoy a gala reception. As a bonus, you'll receive 4 power-packed live training calls to prepare you to truly shine in the spotlight and maximize your appearances. And a free ticket to the Soul Awards Gala in Hollywood, honoring extraordinary women who are shining their light by helping others. You're now a recognized celebrity and reaching more people than you ever have before. It's all possible with the Celebrity VIP Day. Only 12 spots available for this exclusive experience, so don't wait. Apply now.
Hello and welcome back to the Orgena Rose Show. We are here with Andrea Carter, and we're speaking about addiction and our stories. So Andrea, you bring up such a powerful point about how we are around our stories and addiction, especially even being addicted to our stories, right?
Sure.
The old stories that we have.
Yeah, well, and I think it's important to say that we might be addicted to that replay, but you are not your story. And even though from a neurological perspective, it's very, very easy for your brain to go back to the story, you're not your story. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that that's what happened in your life. And that shame that I was speaking of, you know, shame doesn't have to be the story that we repeat. And the first step is to recognize that all of that is in the past. So with the archetypes and the 8 archetypes that I created, what happens is that you get to look at things from a totally different perspective. So, you know, when I look at, I'm just going to show you one of the cards. So, Penthesilea, again, I stayed with that Greek goddess. It's actually incorporated from a very holistic perspective, because it's not just the Greek gods, and there are a lot of infiltrations of different connotations and different psychology behind it. But specifically, you know, Penthesilea she's the goddess of courage and bravery. And you know, what happens with her is that she actually harbors the most grief of the 8 archetypes. And so, you know, when you look at how to recognize your own story, part of what we would do with women who have Penthesilea as their top archetype is we'd look at the grief stories that they're telling themselves. So you learn how to identify the emotional component that you're holding on to. And from there, that's where we begin to look at, okay, this was the story. Now, there's specific techniques that we do in recognizing what are the patterns, what are the experiences, where have you seen the same thing show up in your relationships, at work, where have you pushed through things that maybe could have been different, where have you also used that model, never give up, but on the other side of it, the result was still the same. So in order to begin that process of unhooking from you are not your story, you need to look at some of the patterns that have happened and the tendencies that also associate with the archetypes.
Beautiful. Really, really beautiful. I think that's so key, because many of us are familiar with psychology and understanding of going through the old story and working through those issues and so forth. Great and powerful. But what I'm loving about this is that you took a model that really was empowering for you, and you've created these archetypes to help us all now step into the new story and really recognize who we really are and can be at our fullest and highest. Love that, love that. So can you give us a little example of how to do that? So say with this particular archetype and what they're carrying is maybe grief. So would you also say some of the others maybe are carrying anger, others are carrying, you know.
So Artemis is one of the other archetypes, and Artemis is, you know, she's the goddess of the hunt. And so she loves going after what she wants. However, if it's boring or if it's not what she expected, she will give up, or she'll stop, or she will, you know, at the cusp of being able to break through to the other side, she'll let it all go.
Wow.
And I'm sure that some of you have had that experience where you're just at the cusp of, you know, I'm going to get this, I'm going after it, and then something comes in, some challenge comes up, or all of a sudden it doesn't feel as exciting. We notice this with our relationships, right? With the men that we date. You know, we are told that we're supposed to have this man on the white horse chase in on the stallion and whip us up in his arms. Yes. And yet relationships are also very mundane at times. Sometimes they're just, you know, who's taking the kids to school?
Right, the laundry and the dishes.
The laundry, and that's the reality of it. And so, you know, for Artemis, She's that personality type who, if it's not the job or the husband or the mate or the, friendship, if it's not exciting, she's automatically taking herself out.
Wow.
And that's a story, isn't it? It's a story. We see this story in everyday society. How many girlfriends do we have? Right? Sisters, moms.
Right. Right. Yeah.
We see that.
So that's beautiful, because you can then recognize yourself in this pattern, and then now with your work we can go, aha, this is what to do instead.
Yeah.
So can you share with us a wonderful tip or an exercise that'll help us to really move through?
Sure. And of course, I mean, it's more powerful if you know what your archetypes are.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just your top archetype. There's actually a way that they work together. However, if you're in this pattern, if this is something that's going on in your life, and it doesn't matter if it was the pattern that I introduced with Orgena, or if it was, the pattern from Penthesilea of the grief, recognize, just for a moment, take a moment and look at some of the patterns that are currently happening in your life. That doesn't mean you have to dive deep and look at all of the bad stuff, because sometimes looking at all of the bad stuff isn't where we need to start. Sometimes it's just looking at the regular things. So, you're driving in traffic. What's your initial reaction? You've gone to work and the same thing keeps happening with a coworker, for instance, at work. Those are patterns, and those are showing you different stories, and I'll use air quotes for that reason, because they don't have to keep happening. But the first step is always going to be recognizing, what is it that we're actually doing?
Beautiful. So how can we do that? What's something or just stopping and taking that moment and taking a look and seeing what's happening for you what's a recurring theme?
A reoccurring theme?
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
And it can just be that simple. Just notice what the reoccurring theme is. And then instead of keeping it in your head, because that's what the majority of us do, we can think, I'm sure all of you are thinking, oh, well, this, that. Take a moment, write it down. Write it down, write down the story that you have about that. Write down the underlying aspects that come up and how it makes you feel. Start with the awareness. And then the next aspect is, when you see that pattern coming in, recognize it in the moment.
Yeah.
And choose in that moment that the story doesn't have to play out the exact same way.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Wow. So recognize the story. Love it. We're going to come back, and please join again with Andrea Carter, as we will now also look at some of the things such as distractions, right? Diversions, and disconnections. Oh my, that's how I like to say it. So we'll be back with Andrea Carter, founder of Wealthy Women Warrior, next time. We'll see you again.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us today on our show. I really hope that there was something shared that really helps you shine your biggest and brightest light. Please stop by again, like us on Facebook, tweet us, all of those good things. And most importantly, please always remember, it's all about love.